My name's Linnea Landgren, and I graduated from GRC in 2020. Since then, I've been doing a whole bunch of different things. I worked at an interactive kids museum for about a year, and that was a really cool experience. I did an apprenticeship in informal education, which was really cool for taking what I had learned in GRC and applying it to more of how you would use design in an interactive environment, and thinking about the different barriers to entry and accessibility issues that could come up in that sort of space. And it also really reignited this passion of mine that I've really always had about curiosity and the power of imagination and exploration, because those are the pillars of the museum. And I did a capstone project as part of that apprenticeship, where we got to choose something that was interesting to us that would also benefit the mission of the museum. And I decided to create my own interactive exhibit with my illustration style that would be interactive. And so that was a really fun project. I ended up creating these vinyl decals to go on their windows. That they have this huge rooftop with big windows on looking out over Santa Barbara. And if you've been there, it's gorgeous. I mean, SLO is too. Imagine Bishop's Peak, just 360 views of a gorgeous landscape. And so my idea was that I would take these playful illustrations and use them to kind of interact with the landscape by playing with perspective and scale. So one of them was I had a little snail. So if you're walking by, it looks like the snail is moving because it's on a transparent background. So you could kind of, if you kind of duck around and move around, you can pretend the snail is climbing up the mountain and then going into town. And by that, just having it be very open-ended. So I made a series of designs for that. At the beginning of this year, I actually moved up to the Bay Area. And I've been working both part-time as a graphic designer for a company, and then working for myself and building up my own art brand, and trying to balance, using my technical skills and continuing to build skills within graphic design at a different company, and then also use my creative and explorative mind and continue to fuel my own curiosity and take up experiments and just see what happens. So I feel very fortunate that I'm able to do that. I like to believe that anyone of any age can enjoy the work that I do, and I really want it to be clear right away what is being expressed. So I use a lot of simple shapes and lines. I don't want it to be too complicated, because I think you can communicate a lot with just a few strokes. But I do tend to lean toward curiosity and emotion, and expressiveness is kind of the natural way that I experience the world. Those are things that I just naturally am doodling things about all the time, and it turns into something bigger when I take sketches and refine them. Any little moment that I think of something, I should take note of it, just doodle it down, or take note on some fleeting thought. And I would say I kind of have different states of being when it comes to creating something new. One of them is I have the idea, but I don't want to act on it. And the other one is I really want to act on it, but I have no ideas. So I kind of have to capture the ideas when I get them, and then I can gather them together so that when I have energy to actually make something, I'll already have a database of ideas, because I think they are very different parts of the workflow in terms of mindset. So I think that's the biggest thing. I don't have the perfect system by any means. I have lots of random notebooks everywhere. I end up doodling in my planner, and then it goes into my iPad, and then that's kind of organized because it's an iPad, and then it's there's a structure in there. But I would say it's kind of fun that it isn't super organized in some sense. Sometimes I draw just on loose pieces of paper because it feels less intimidating because it feels like, oh, if I hate it, I can just get rid of it. There's no attachment there. Whereas if I draw in a notebook, I might feel like, oh, that wasn't any good. Now it's stuck in there, I can't get rid of it. So I like to think of it as like organized piles of ideas in different places, and I first, for sure, flipping through it and seeing, which of these projects I want to pick up if it's just something for myself, and then like refining the sketch. I'll usually import it into my iPad so I can do layered drawings, and I'll do like a rough revision where I simplify the lines and maybe try a different angle of the idea, or just like play with what the composition looks like. And then from there, once I get like a good rough, I'll go back in and do a new set of layers for each piece. Definitely working in layers in a digital form is like really nice. But I also do like to work with like paper, like this little collage type style where I like cut little shapes out. So I like to try to mix it up to keep inspiration going and see what's different about different mediums. Work for clients, I definitely would start more so with like writing out lists of requirements and specifications, and like planning out more the back end of, like what are the goals of this graphic, or what like emotion do I need to convey, and like what are good symbols for those things, and kind of think through before even sketching like what I want to convey. And that way it'll help to like come up with something that has deeper meaning behind it, rather than like starting to sketch, because I feel like that you can kind of tend to go too basic if you just start sketching it. You want to have a plan for like what you want people to notice about it. Linnea's sketchbook is kind of the precursor to what I'm doing right now. And I decided to change the name to Linnea Land because I didn't want it to be like just a sketchbook. I want it to be more evolved at this point and showcase a wider variety of skills and design work. But initially it started as me participating in the craft market run through ASI at Cal Poly, which was really fun. One of my friends actually was like, you should totally sell your like earrings that you make. I'm like, what? I just make those for myself. Would anyone really buy those? And then yeah, they did buy a lot of them, and I thought, wow, that's cool. Like I could sell even more. And it's funny because I feel like now, like several years later, it's so common that people like sell earrings online, but back in 2019 it really wasn't as big of a thing. But that was definitely like a really cool experience, seeing that my art was something that people enjoyed and wanted to wear. So I was taking a lot of these different classes where we were not just like designing flat things, but actually creating the structure and the graphics. So this class was a collaboration with the packaging department, GRC, and the graphic design department in the fine arts. And we had people from all these three majors collaborating in group projects to create these Nintendo Switch packaging pieces that were part of a competition. And we decided to go with this idea of creating an escape room themed packaging. The goal or the criteria were that it would contain a Nintendo Switch and also be packaging that would be seen as both collectible and usable, that people would keep and interact with in some sort of way. So we thought it would be cool to include physical artifacts and puzzle things that would go with this theoretical video game that was in the Switch. And then we created different designs that would then be, interactive in some way with the device itself. And so that's what you see there. It was quite an intensive project my junior year of college. So it was super demanding and cool. I started posting on Giphy pretty recently, and I've been thinking about doing it for quite a while, and I just kind of wasn't fitting into my schedule, because creating GIFs is like creating a bunch of drawings that then move together. So I was just thinking, like, is it even worth it to spend this much time on doing it? But then I was just playing around with it, and the dog gifs were really fun to make because, like, I just enjoyed watching them bouncing back and forth and, like, interacting within that little cartoon world. And when I started making gifs for the first time through Procreate, I figured, okay, well, now I've made these, I may as well post them. Like, it wasn't super thought out or anything like that. And I put them up. In the first 1.5 months, I ended up accumulating over 50 million views across everything that I created, which is completely mind-blowing to me, but also makes sense in that there are a lot of people on the internet. I don't know, it felt empowering. It's like the first time that I've really seen those, like, huge numbers in relation to my art. And I think that GIFs are, like, really connected to my core values in that people are able to interact with them and, like, use them as stickers in their social media, and it feels less static and it feels more evergreen to create that type of content that people are interacting with. It definitely made me feel really happy to see that people were interacting with my work across the world, and they have no idea who I am. I don't know who they are, but they're still enjoying it clearly enough to be using it in their daily lives. So it's really cool. I think GRC is, like, a really hard major to explain to people that weren't there, but I'm lucky to work with people that also were in GRC, and, you know, like, having that understanding with them of what we know about the software is really cool. But even outside of that, I think if I had just studied, like, graphic design, there would be a big gap in understanding of why certain things you can't really create in a printed environment from a technical perspective, right? So if, like, for instance, right now I'm working for a company that makes maps, printed maps, and also online maps. When we're talking about what we're going to make, if we're looking at all these different bus route colors, for instance, knowing that CMYK is used, thinking about, like, what the colors are actually going to look like for print, you want to be cautious that bus route colors are, like, clear when they print. And if you know that they're not going to be using spot colors, like, you have to be really careful so that some don't just, like, if you use a really light yellow, it might just completely be invisible if you're using really small dot patterns and things like that. So being aware of how technology works is really the most empowering thing. And especially, like, stating your case as a designer, if you're justifying, like, I know this isn't maybe, like, the best looking thing, but I know that output wise it will be the right thing to do because it's not going to work the way that it was previously. And other sort of situations where knowing how the technology works will definitely help in understanding, like, why decisions are made. When I was in GRC, I really felt so supported by all the faculty, and it was my greatest joy just going in to talk to the professors when I was in their class and had a question, and just because they're really nice people that are looking to help out and be supportive. So it's been something that I miss outside of college, and I super encourage that while you are in such a, like, learning space, to really take advantage of getting to know people and building those relationships, because it's significantly harder to do that after college, and those relationships are so invaluable. And I hope that I can come back and visit everybody at some point soon, because I think having people on your side is, like, the most valuable asset